Yo, what's up? It's Jimmy Dundahands, aka The Lookout here, getting to get to you with another MMA pound for pound power rankings. This is part 5. Uh, this is updated until August 1st, 1995, 8/1, 1995. The last one was January 1st, 1995. Here on the left hand side, with the blue or black background, this is the 95 part 1 chart. And on the right hand side here we have that same chart, but I'm giving you the fights that the guys had this year. Okay, so where it says new on the right hand side, that is all the fights they had in the past 6 or 7 months of 95. And this is their new record, August 1st, 1995. So for example, Royce Gracie had 1 fight this year, Ken Shamrock had 4, Masakatsu, Rutin, and Suzuki all had 5. They all had 5. They were all 5-1. All right, and if you look on the right hand side here, the 2 guys who were getting the boot are going to be Takaku Fuki and Jason DeLucia, because you see they're 9-9 and 7-8. That's not enough to stay on our top 10 power rankings for 1995. All right. So this is the new chart. This is the new chart. I don't have the chart yet up, but this is the order it's going to be in. We got number 1, Royce Gracie. Obviously, you know he was our previous number 1 for good reason. He's the greatest fighter of all time. And he only fights Ken Shamrock here, and he draws with him at UFC 6. But it was a 30-minute fight, and he showed that he was still really good, and he was technically the super fight champion actually before this, so he had no reason to go out and really try to win this, I guess. And he still beat Ken before. So he gets number 1. But Ken Shamrock also gets number 1, because there's no way that you can say that Royce Gracie is truly better than him when you look at his, I guess you could say his MMR. He had so much quality, it's hard to compete. He was 15-3, and now he's 19-4-1. And he drew with Toyce. He beat Dan Severn. He beat Bas Rutten. And he only lost to Minoru Suzuki, and he has the most wins of anyone on our list. So at this point, he's even with Royce Gracie completely. Number 2, we have Masakatsu Funaki, and he goes 5-1. He only loses to Manabu Yamada, who's a great fighter, and he wins all 5 by submission within the first 10 minutes. And this is undisputable in any organization, right? Because even in those UFC standards, he would still win. And we know, Masakatsu Funaki was absolutely world class. If you watch him, the only 2 people in the world who outclass him in any way, shape, or form on the face of this earth at this time are Royce Gracie and Ken Shamrock. That is undisputable. So Masakatsu Funaki is the number 2, and no man can deny him. Minoru Suzuki, number 3. So he was 12-3. He also goes 5-1. He's 17-4. He loses to Frank Shamrock. All right, but he beats Ken Shamrock again. And this one, I don't think it was a fluke. I think he really did beat him. And he beats Jason DeLucia, who's good. And Minoru Suzuki and Bas Rutten, I think if you go back, they were together before, and they still are tight. This could have been either way, 3-4, but I think Suzuki beats Ken Shamrock, and Bas Rutten could never seem to do that. And Suzuki did it. So I think he just gets the bump a little bit, even though Rutten beat him, and he has a little bit more wins too. Okay, and he still looks, they're about even, all right? Number 4 is Bas Rutten, and he was 6-3. This you get the great Bas Rutten volume. Look at 1995. It might have been one of the greatest years in MMA history of any fighter, Bas Rutten in 1995. Now, Minoru Suzuki included in that, though, too. And so Bas Rutten, number 4, was 6-3. Now he's 11-4. He beats Manabu Yamada, okay? And then he loses to Ken Shamrock, big whoop. But then he beats Takaku Fuki, Mo Smith, who he drops with a right fucking straight palm strike, Jason DeLucia, and he beats Frank Shamrock, who beat him before, but who cares? and he shows incredible improvement on it. He shows real world-class ground talent, honestly, and we already know how he was on the feet. So, yeah, he looks better than ever, and he never loses again after this. That loss to Shamrock was the last loss of his entire career. All right, number 5 is Rickson Gracie, 3-0 from 94 Vale Tudo, and now he's 5-0 from 95 Vale Tudo. He's now 6-0. Same thing in 94 Vale Tudo. Not the hardest competition, but he looked convincing, and maybe nobody actually wants to fight him because maybe they offered a really big grand prize in that tournament, right? And the lower guys didn't get much, and no one thought they could beat him for the big prize, so that's why no one joined it. All right? And we'll talk more about Vale Tudo 95 for one specific person. Manabu Yamada, number 6, you obviously know. The Manabu is the great, Manabu the great one, Yamada. 3-2 this year, which isn't great. And now he's 17-8-2. But he does beat Funaki, DeLucia, and White, who are all, they're not just, like, you wouldn't say they're, like, lower. They all had a ranking at some point, if not now. And he only loses to DeLucia and Rutan, and he avenged that loss. And he actually does have the most fights of anyone on this list. Most professional fights. Even more than Ken Shamrock, if I'm not mistaken. Even though Ken Shamrock has more than him. So even though he didn't have the same volume or like percentage win, he still kind of rides on that, 25 fights, 17 wins at this point, and world-class talent is unheard of at this point, really. So he's number 6. And the people above him, like Minoru Suzuki and Basser, I'm pretty sure they beat him. So, or Funaki does at least. Dan Severn is number 7, and Rutan beats him too. So he can't be above them. Dan Severn is number 7. And Dan Severn was 2-1 before this. He only fought in the one UFC, but now he's 5-2. And he beats Oleg Taktarov, Dave Benito, and Joe Charles, who never made it in our list before. But those were decent fighters, big guys too, in UFC 5. And he actually wins. And then in UFC 6, he fights Ken Shamrock in a super fight. And he loses that fight pretty bad to Ken Shamrock. But he beats the crap out of everyone else. Just like in UFC 4 or whatever, when he lost to Hoist, he beat the crap out of everyone else. So, and this guy didn't really have the same experience level as they did. So if he gets some more fights, you can see that he'll be even better. And he's 5-2. And yeah, I don't think anyone can really take this spot from him. But all these other ones are close. Manabu and Down are more solidified. Everyone after this is more. It's based a little bit more on their expectations of what they could do. If you saw these guys fight in 1995, right, you'd be pretty hype on these guys, right? Like, you would be really hype on them and their chances if you had to put a bet down. And that's why they make it like this. Oleg Taktarov, he wins UFC 6. And this is when Ken Shamrock and the other guy had their super fight. He wins UFC 6 by beating Tank Abbott, who was extremely formidable. Again, I said, Oleg Taktarov beats Tank Abbott, and fucking Dan Severn beats Taktarov, right? And this guy, Oleg Taktarov, had 3 wins in Russia in 1993 in a 2-day tournament. So he's 7-1 now. He's 4-1 in UFC. He's really big, and he has like this Russian Sambo background. They even we know he was in like some really hard amateur competitions before that. So he had the pedigree. Again, we see the pedigree, like the Dan Severn pedigree, the Hoist Gracie pedigree, the Rickson Gracie pedigree. Boss Rutan getting picked up by them saying that they said he was good. When great fighters, or like the announcers, people, the hype generates, there's a reason for it. Because smart people know what that training matters, and this guy had the training. And number 9, okay, is going to be a name that hasn't been in. This guy's not fought in Pancrase. He has not fought in UFC. I think this is the only person on our list so far, who has not had a single fight in either organization. All right? And has not fought anyone in either organization. Mikhail Ihlyukin is a Russian fighter. Some of you may know him now but at the time he was relatively unknown. But I have a feeling that even at the time, people had to know about this event. So Mikhail Ihlyukin only fights one night in his whole MMA career up until this point. One single day, and he beats 5 men in one night. And all I can say is this. The quality of those fighters is, you could say it was less than good. And all I can say is, beating 5 men in one night, he's 5-0. So it's not unheard of that he can make it onto this list, but this is a tough list at this point. These guys have a lot of wins, so it's a little hard to believe, but you just have to see it. Mikhail Ihlyukin was an absolute dog on you, all right? He'd take you down, and it was just one of those guys. He had that ability in those days to just take someone down easily and never let them get back up. All right, Mikhail Ihlyukin is number 9, a very, very, very tough man. And number 10 is, because if you look at everyone else, no one really stood out. We're going to give it to Yuki Nakai. Remember, this is a pound for pound list. So if some guy is like crazy pound for pound, then I will sometimes grant it to them. And Yuki Nakai is the case. Yuki Nakai was a Shudo fighter, and he fought at 154 pounds in Shudo. And this is not long after a Shudo fight. He had a Shudo fight at 154 pounds in 1995, and this was about 5 months after that. And he was 9 wins, 1 loss, and 1 draw in Shudo, okay? And then he crosses over like Manabu Yamada does, and he comes to Maitudo, Japan, 1995, and he loses to Rickson Gracie here. But Rickson Gracie is a great fighter and outweighed him by 50 pounds. He also beat Jamar Godot. He does well against Rickson Gracie, too. And no one else really does remotely as good as him. No other fighter in the world. We're going to look at some of the other guys on the list, all right? Who could have maybe made it, just to prove to you that no one could knock out Yuki Nakai. Pound for pound, too. And he did fight the heavyweights. Tank Abbott fights in UFC 5, loses to Oleg Taktarov, but he viciously KOs Paul, rest in peace, Polar Bear of Ireland, and John Matsua. Frank Shamrock is 4-3-1, and he has a win over Fuki, Suzuki, and Bruton, which is really good, but still, he has 3 losses also. And we have a new guy named Takafumi Ito, who some of you may know in Pancrase, and he goes 7-1 in Pancrase, but his best 2 wins are over Vernon White and Yushi Nagasawa, who I'm not very high on. And his other 5 wins are weak over people who are lower than rank 15, not even like Delucia or White. I don't think he could beat them at this point. And he loses to an extremely low-ranked Scott Basak, who was having the high point of his MMA career. And Takafumi Ito was contributing to that. Alright, so Yuki Nakai. Here's the list. 95, Part 2, Power Rankings. Royce Gracie, 11-0-1. And number 1, Ken Shamrock, 19-4-1. Number 2 is Masakatsu Funaki, 17-4. Number 3, Minoru Suzuki, 16-4. Number 4, Basru, 11-4. Number 5, Rickson and Gracie, 6-0. Number 6, Manabu Yamada, 17-8-2. Number 7, Dan Severn, 5-2. Number 8, Oleg Taktarov, 7-1. Mikhail Ihlyukin, 5-0. Number 10, Yuki Nakai, 9-2. This is the 1995 MMA Pound for Pound Power Rankings, Part 2, brought to you by Jimmy Thunderhands. Peace.